Hiya, welcome to Carrow Road. I'm a bit late to the action really today because they've just been having a training session out on the Carrow Road pitch with the players who didn't feature today or came off the bench, which I didn't quite get to watch a lot of, but I saw some of it. Todd Cantwell was out there training, which was good, and Isaac Hayden was out there having a kick around. So it's a couple of nice things to see there because more the merrier in terms of Norwich getting players back. But let's not procrastinate for much longer because we've got a bit to talk about today. Norwich have suffered their first home league defeat of the season. I'm sure that's right. With this canny scoreline, which I'm guessing from the pre-match chatter, no one was predicting because everyone thought it was going to be 0-0. I mean, looking at Preston, obviously they had only scored 4 and conceded 4 before today. They hadn't conceded away from home. They hadn't lost away from home either. I think most people thought that it was going to be quite a quiet game. I would have said before the game, and I did to a few people, that it's kind of an outlier, really, in terms of Preston's performance at both ends of the pitch. It wasn't some special magical formula. It was more just variance that they were ending up in the situation they were in, and this probably put it to bed. Norwich certainly had a handle and a hand in that as well, because this was a chaotic game, and it didn't need to be a chaotic game. And I think out of all the little issues that Norwich have had, even when they've been playing well this season, they all kind of culminate into this one essence, and this one essence this season so far has been control. Norwich have very rarely had control of a game, and whilst I appreciate it's a championship and it should be competitive and all these sort of things, I would have expected Norwich to have looked more in control of what was going on more often. And control means having good amounts of play. It means defending securely. It means creating chances so that you look like you know what you're doing and what you're trying to make happen in the final third as well. And so there's lots of parts to that control essence, and maybe that's the one thing, the biggest difference compared to the other 2 seasons Norwich have played recently in the Championship, is that the level of control just hasn't been there, and a game like this really does emphasise that. I think it's been an issue in other games, but certainly today it was a major problem because Norwich, against a team that hadn't conceded away from home all season, were 1-0 up after 2 minutes, 108 seconds, I think I worked out, roughly, something like that. The absolute ideal start. Not only that, Norwich could have been 2 or 3 up within those first 20 minutes. They had some wonderful opportunities. Teemu Pukki had 2 great chances today and didn't take either of them. In fact, he missed the target with both. No one will need to tell Teemu he should have hit the target with them both, clearly. And, that's one of the arguments that's something that would normally happen and didn't happen today. So for all of the, it was just a sense that maybe today was a bit of an undoing and just not normal in that respect. You could kind of sense the longer it went on that Norwich not grabbing that chance and extending their lead would be an issue. It was a really well taken goal by Josh Sargent coming in off the left, won the ball, I think, certainly picked it up, drove and then hit a low shot that probably Freddie Woodman probably should have saved, in all honesty, but he was quite exposed. So in that circumstance, everything's looking okay, but it was quite clear that maybe wasn't going to continue. I feel like in those first 20 minutes, Norwich overwhelmed Preston with how they were playing, how quickly they were getting the ball forward, but also they didn't seem to expect the way Norwich were playing, which was essentially in reality, I mean, it wasn't, my Dean Smith has said, it wasn't really a diamond as such. It was like a 4-3-3, but the front 3 with a 10 and then 2 forwards rather than a focal point and 2 wide inside forwards, if that makes sense. So probably suited the personnel better, and it was working really well. And then Preston managed to get themselves together, really. I think the goal may have come before that, and it was a bit of a gift, really. But they had a little bit of a spell where they were No, I think it was the goal, and then from that point on, they were onwards. Because in all honesty, it was more of an issue that Norwich hadn't extended their lead. You kind of felt, probably should have done this, should have got further ahead, and the fact they didn't meant that as soon as Preston got forward, which they did, Robbie Brady on the right-footed cross, Reece with a lovely header back across, but he's sort of behind Omobamidele, so he doesn't really either know he's there or engage him properly, and Max Aarons doesn't close in on the other side, so neither of them deal with him. It's a free header that close in. And Tim Krul can't really do much when he's that exposed. It's really poor 6-yard box or 10 penalty box defending. And from that point, really, the game was all over the place for Norwich, because I actually think Preston were the better side from that point on for the most part, and they defended pretty well. The chances dried up a bit for Norwich. There were big gaps in the midfield in the first part of the game, but they just sort of restricted that a bit more in the second, and were a lot more secure. But what they did is they kept two up top, and that, however hard Norwich then pushed, it just kept presenting Norwich with issues. Preston had a threat on the counter all through the game, and they had two really good. Once it was 1-1, they looked like the side most likely to then score a second, which they then did after half time. Sam Byram, to be clear, big tackle on Alan Brown. For me, it didn't look great in real time, and then by the time I'd seen a replay, it's a red card. He studs up on the inside of Brown's leg. I know it's mistimed and everything, but it's a horrible challenge, and it should have been a red. And I think if we'd had VAR in today, it would have been red. So, Norwich could have quite easily been down to 10 men for the rest of the game, but they weren't. So that was a bit of good luck. And then I think Byram had a slight hip pain or some such. So that was why he didn't come out for the second half. Kenny McLean slipped to left back, and Gabriel Sara came on in one of the three midfield roles and did well, burst forward well. And that was grand to see. I mean, there's an element maybe Byram came off because the change suited Norwich as well. If it wasn't a major injury issue, it might be just a bit of protection there for him. I don't know, but I didn't think it was necessarily a bad decision anyway, because it's probably protected Sam from getting another yellow anyway, just in case. And yeah, Norwich was sort of pressing, but in the end, they went behind again through. I need to see Tim Krul's pass again, because apparently it's sort of between two defenders. And I think it was Liam Gibbs and Max Aarons who both sort of looked at it and no one dealt with it. And that's a major issue. One of them has to deal with it, regardless of whether the pass is really poor. And by all accounts, it was a really poor pass. And then Preston work it really well, and Reece has a second goal. And again, it's just so open. It's horrible. And it's Norwich can't defend like that. A lot of huff and puff then. I never really felt convinced that the game was going to turn around, but they did get themselves level through a really nicely worked goal, and Sarah's first in English football, and it was well taken, and that was all great. Teemu missed a brilliant other chance, which again was a well-worked move, but he just slashed it wide when I was convinced he was going to score, I have to say. The one in the first half, I've seen him sort of scuff those before, but the other one, I just thought he's just going to volley that home. But he didn't. He missed the target. And then 2-2, you're hoping things will kick on, and a kind of a freak goal by Troy Parrott. Have I got this right? Have I got this in the right order? It did go to 2-2 and 3-2, didn't it? Yeah, I'm sure it did. And then a freak goal, really, from Troy Parrott. He's sort of cutting on the left. He's trying to cross the ball. It flicks in off Gibbs, I think, and goes towards the goal. And again, I probably need to see this again to judge whether Tim Krul should have kept it out. I think people said it. She's got two hands on it. It was near post, so there is an argument there. But of course, even if you look like you're getting it, it's quite hard if it's a pretty wicked deflection, and that was one. So just really unfortunate. Oh, my arm's really aching, so sorry about that. So yeah, just a series of misfortunes, most of which imposed by Norwich themselves to a degree. They had a couple of moments, and El Hernandez had a really good volley that was tipped over by Woodman. But it was all just a bit rank and chaotic, and as I said, a lack of control, a lack of really making things work in their favour and being effective. And I thought Preston came here, and bearing in mind they looked absolutely all over the place in the opening few minutes, and you kind of wondered what the score was going to be like, and this was the time they were going to get battered. I actually thought their recovery from that situation was brilliant. They got themselves back in the game and they passed the ball really well. They carried a really good, consistent threat going forwards. They could have scored more than their 3. It's hard because I think Norwich did create a lot of chances and opportunities, and it's their own fault for not taking them. So I wouldn't have said bizarrely Preston looked particularly secure at the back, but they worked hard and they seemed really cohesive together, and they're kind of a tidy, useful side, better than a lot of the sides in the bottom half of the table. Ryan Lowe's doing a great job with how he's pulling that together, and it'll be interesting how they sort of move on from here and what it looks like, because it was hard not to appreciate how they went about it. And yeah, of course, they wasted a bit of time and took their time over things and what have you, and that's sort of standard fare, really. I do love a 97th minute booking for time wasting. Dean Smith did rather get in on that action in his press conference, which, it was a point he really did want to make twice. But it's difficult to be too critical necessarily of Dean Smith in a situation like this, because ultimately I don't think there was too much wrong in how he set Norwich up. And in fact, I thought it was quite creative and it all made sense. I'm happy with it. But when players are making those sort of decisions, it's and missing chances, and then you make mistakes like that, there is only so much you can do. People will say this result has been coming and things like that. And as I said, I think the control is an issue, because if you can't control your games as best you can, then you just leave yourself open for that. But I've been watching Norwich a lot of seasons. I'm sure a lot of you have as well. The reality is, every season, all the time, any unbeaten run, it was 9 games before today, any really good run, everything, they always end with a really weird, rubbish performance or result, because you're probably quite a good side and that's how it ends. And so here we are. This was this one. The key, as always, and it is a cliche, is can you go on another 9-game unbeaten run or a 10-game unbeaten run? Can you get more points from that next run than the last one you did? That's the key. Don't go and lose 2-3 games on the spin. Don't go 5 games without a win, or 1 win in 6. That's the key. So that's Norwich's task. At least we've got a memorable game. So at least we've managed that. But yeah, it was a shame. There's one thing I haven't spoken about. Mainly because I don't think much rode on it in terms of the performance and result, but it could have done. Would have been the difference maybe between a defeat and a draw. I don't know, but Norwich had a goal disallowed very late on. Kenny McLean took a shot. The whistle blew just before he hit the shot. The ball nestled in the corner. I don't think the whistle blew early enough for everyone to have stopped, but that is potentially an element to it. But it's kind of instantaneous, so I don't necessarily. The whistle did go before he took the shot. I think it's debatable how much of an impact that had potentially. The main issue was that the whistle went for, I don't know who it was with, but Grant Hanley and maybe Story having a grapple. And there was a push. I think Dean Smith was saying there was a punch by the defender on Hanley. I don't know if that's true or not. I hadn't seen that. But also I hadn't really seen a major push from Hanley. It was really soft. The problem was the referee was watching it as it was unfolding and almost warned a couple of seconds before then seeing whatever Hanley did and then deciding that was a foul. But I don't know. I think it's very hard to say that's a foul, because you would literally be blowing your whistle all the time to stop play, all the time. And you can't just say, well, he's seen that one. I mean, it's very, very dubious. I just don't. I think it was just one of those human moments from a referee where he's seen it, it's annoying him, and he's just thought, right, I'm going to give this. And it was a bit like that performance at times, but likewise, Norwich should have been down to 10 men in the first half. So it swings and roundabouts, as is the Championship football season. So I think that's everything from today. As I said, Cantwell and Hanley both training earlier. Cantwell and Hayden both training here earlier, which is good to see. Hopefully we'll see them back on the pitch soon, because there's definitely room for rotation. Norwich don't play in midweek this week. I know, right? They're off to Watford next Saturday. One hell of a game in store. All that talking about bouncing back. Norwich could do with doing that at Vicarage Road, where I believe Watford got hammered today. Did they? Or they lost at Blackpool. That's right. See, I've been checking the scorelines and hopefully I've got that right. I think they lost at Blackpool 3-1. Which is, of course, where Norwich won 1-0 last weekend. Oh, God, we're actually regressing into actual championship cliches. Maybe it is all as even as it said. Maybe it is exactly the same. Who knows? Anyway, there it was. Norwich 2-3 Preston. The Tifo for fans. Oh dear. Oh, no. So you won't have seen this, but I've actually got holes in these cables now as well. So I am really going to have to repair these and replace them with earpods. Christmas soon. Have a lovely time. Enjoy yourselves. Check in at the Athletic. There'll be some fun stuff coming up over the next couple of weeks. So keep an eye out for that. Yeah, and on the Ball podcast on Monday, I better book some guests. In the meantime, take care of yourselves. It's only football. Don't worry about it. We'll be back again next weekend. And go do something you like in the meantime. From Carrow Road with a still blue sky. Cheerio. Goodbye. Ta-ta. Let's remove that. Let's get a bit of this. And I will see you anon.